This is a square. Take what makes a zoo great, like amazingly large habitats, unique animals and decorations, with all the guest facilities too, and making a whole zoo inside this square suddenly feels impossibly tiny. The question is how? How will I maintain almost perfect guest ratings, make sure our animals are all happy and not die an overcrowded death, and build a whole entire zoo inside this one tiny square in Planet Zoo? Well, to answer that, we must begin with the starting zone. Inside this grey cube walls I built earlier, we set the foundations of this challenging zoo like paths and a staff section that we made with rule number 1, that staff is allowed to stay and go outside the walls. Trust me, when you see the first habitat, you'll see I'll need every space I can get. And I'll do that with the main premise of the starting zone. Small animals that require the least space to survive, and totally not an excuse to cram poor animals into this white prison to save space. Anyways, this home will be the hard shelter that is connected to the rest of the habitat that can be seen through glass barriers. Remember, even this first tiny habitat is taking a huge chunk of our space already, and we'll have up to 8 animals we're gonna have to fit in here amongst everything else with their own bizarrely themed zones. But with the basics now built, we can now pick out our first animals. Something beautiful that, oh my god, the 9-banded armadillo. It seemed perfect with them needing such little space. So I bought a healthy pair and have them quickly sent over into the habitat, where the now excited and suspiciously wrinkly armadillos can show us what terrain types they want as I started painting over with a mix of sand and dirt. And then it's rocks, where I sprinkled darker tropical rocks around, blended with a lighter brown of desert rocks over it. Remember kids, we don't want boring rocks, especially when I need to match them with these sexy termite hills that our ugly leather balls can later lick. I even use aquatic rocks I colored dark red to look like ant mounds to keep the bug-infested field aesthetic. With the backdrop done too, I can move on to the last most important part of the habitat, the life, or lack thereof, as the plants they like consist of dead bushes and dry short grass that I clump together into the rocks, sneaking some greener shrubbery to breathe some color into the enclosure. Then the appropriate also dead fallen trees and sticks everywhere. Plus, don't forget glamming the insides and you got yourself a nice armadillo home. Well, they're all burrowed up nice underground for now, while upstairs the guests are raving about the new attraction. It really is just a barren field. But while they're at it, why not add some donation boxes and information screens that take away money off their grubby fingers? Especially with an information center and balloon shop too, because I literally spent all my money. So while our moneymakers make some of our cash back, let's prepare for our next starting zone animal. And trust me, I have an interesting one up my sleeve. And speaking of secret plans, let me tell you about Polybuzz AI, and stick around because they're actually going to help me in this video. It's an app with over 10 million downloads and over 20 million characters from your favorite movies and animes that you'll be able to chat with, even letting you create your own unique character chatbots. And since I need some help with today's difficult challenge, I can ask literally anyone for advice, like this sweet girl maybe?
Why did I find a woman in your phone named Ally? Are you cheating on me?
Oh god. How about the master dino whisperer himself, Owen Grady? And I guess I'm the raptor. Growls because it's been days since my last Dryosaurus meal. Papa, I have a question, Papa. Owen looked at you and chuckled. What's the question, kiddo? I have a dream. A raptor dream. To build a zoo inside a tiny square. Starts arping and raptor, how do I do it? He did not really help that much. Yes, the possibilities are endless. And honestly a must-have app for you to unleash your creativity or finally express your deep down feelings for that certain character. I even made my own original character called Keenling that I want you to try out. So click the link in the description and use my promo code Keenling to get some pretty cool stuff. Thank you Polybuzz AI for sponsoring this video. Now we need another cute low maintenance animal that barely needs any space. And I've got just the one. Quickly making a second white home and slightly more decorated barriers around to get our new animals right in. The Galapagos tortoise. Slow, sturdy, and built to last over centuries. A wise old soul like them deserves a proper home before they even take their first steps outside. So hurriedly I terrained an island and trail around it, making sure they got nesting areas up to their standard. Perfectly picked tropical plants hugging every inch of the... And of course the final touches around the habitat before quick, they're getting close. Oh wait, they're actually super slow. The tortoise den. With rule number 2, the walls can be tampered with as long as everything stays inside. I used it making holes in the wall to simulate a hot tropical sun, tricking them into a false sense of hope inside this grey lifeless home they'll be stuck in forever. Look, they're out to explore. Unlike the ones hiding in the burrow who's been busy in the baby making industry, the tortoises are happy enough grazing their new homes. But in the cover of dark dark, our new babies are more than happy, terrorizing the ant-riddled lands with tiny hops and jiggies, and even tinier bodies. These armadillings mark the end of the starting zone, and the start of our next many sections. Yes, you might be thinking how I'll fit a whole forested area in this tiny square. Well, the Tree Dwellers lane will take the whole middle part of the zoo, and we'll start prepping by setting up some gosh darn standards for the zoo. With disgusting litter around, I dealt by placing plenty of bins everywhere, and around shops. Plenty of new ones to make some money, cause Jimmy here clearly was lying in his resume. What the? With educational speakers talking about the animals, a giant toilet, and conservation boards all around, this sets the busy zoo up to sustain itself while we move on to our next exciting animal. We just gotta wait until our money goes up now. I can't take it anymore, so I'll take a measly $20,000 loan from the loan man. And let's get to building, guys. Okay, the layout is done and I used rule number 3. That is, since I have limited space, I'm going to build upwards. For what animal, you ask? The clouded leopards. And this habitat got their name written all over it. I still need to build it first. After finalizing the layout, I made a nice, also white hard shelter inside it. Then bought 2 of our rare leopards to be sent into the home. That still has a long way from finishing because his name is Longway. Okay, I took some time figuring out the terrain I want, swallowing a leopard under 6 feet of dirt in the process, but ultimately decided on an elevated ground as the main focus, surrounded by gravelly dirt textures that trail upwards and across the hill. Then from the water body with a variety of tropical rocks hugging the structure. Outside, I made a path going upwards into the dusty, sweaty backside of the habitat for something special I have planned later on. Back inside, lighter colored stones and heaps of mulch over the rocks will give that natural look and welcome the tall and dense trees and smaller birch saplings that will be the foundation of a multi-story structure that I will make. Right after, planting a whole array of vegetation using the whole hues of green to yellow bushes and grass that is kissed with the pink and purple accents of wildflowers and cute plants that bloom out of it, even playing with the head of palm trees on rocks to look like water plants. I kind of cooked making the undergrowth, and with final polishes and decorating the shelter, it's time we take to the treetops, where I mapped out and built a large, basically cat treehouse made out of logs connected to the trees, whole tiny hut section on the walls, and trackway leading all upwards to the canopy onto the glass on the other side. What's left is putting out all the screens to attract guests, beautify the top section with shops, worry about the crippling debt I'll get from the ever-growing loan interest, and finally open the leopard paradise. I'm very proud of this one, and the guests can even check out the treehouse from an elevated viewing point. The cloud kitties seem to love the place too, eating good meat and taking a well-deserved nap. I even caught one scouting from the branches of a birch tree watchtower. Get down safely, buddy. Well, other than that, and whatever this guy's doing, this enclosure seems like a complete success. Well, on the entrance of the zoo, some grown-up armadillo babies had basically started bullying their mom, so I did what was right and sold them off in the market. In fact, the zoo was such in a good place that I could finally pay off the loans I took. And the guest overview is all positive and just loving me. Look at all those compliments. Wait, what? Small? Alright, it's time to make the next forest animal. And this time it'll be the biggest, most bizarre animal yet, and a habitat that our guests will be able to actually go in. Look how big it is from afar in our tiny square. And after this, we'll have to somehow fit in 5 more animals, but let's worry about that later. Then I loop-de-dooped a wooden path with railings through the habitat, and some nice terraining that creep towards the elevated path. This allows the animal to come close and personal with the guests and ensures Timmy doesn't fall in and die a painful death. But I wanted to get a more unique, fascinating animal this time around. And with the help of Polybuzz AI and, you know, okay, the okapi it is. Is it a horse? Is it a zebra? I actually have no idea what that is. But their otherworldly features will definitely bring in some attention after I bought and sent some healthy ones into the habitat. With her inside and definitely a concussion hazard when this opens, I added water and painted a steady blend from a dirt and muddy play area to a more forested and healthy area later on. I think that's good for now. Luckily, rocks here are going to be more simple. Down from a cluster of them of a certain water feature I have planned. The main trees too, up to the ruggedness of the cliffside edge and thrown all around the habitat. Despite being extremely picky with their plants, with the finer rock details and more bush coverage for our okapapi and mommy, adding even more woodland sprigs to add volume, overgrown patches, questionable enrichment items, and polish to the guest area. At night, I tied the ribbon on top of this habitat, making a waterfall on the rocks under the bridge, and our biggest habitat so far is done. Look how happy everyone is. And the Okapi seems to be enjoying themselves and showing off their goods. So we'll let this new area simmer. While we do that, I've been so busy building that many of our animals have been doing the sweet baby making. Like some baby tortellinis here. Look at my little tank babies. Come, see your new habitat. Okay, we're not doing this again. And the armadillo parents have not learned their lessons and cooked up more oogly babies too. Even more recently, when I observed the mama leopard sick and napping, I didn't know she was going to give birth to a kitten born in flesh. Wow, so violent already. But this cutie is having a blast, just taking on the climbing course of the habitat and exploring, not knowing that the zoo is about to experience a catastrophe. A sudden snowstorm had hit our zoo, and with the little space we have, the snow is building up quick. The tortoise mama hurries to protect her children. No, buddy, you don't have to be a hero. Don't leave into the storm. Armadillos panicking amongst the blizzard and fleeing into the burrow. Unfortunate for the babies that are left upstairs to lay in the cold. Oh no. I tried placing heaters around, but the snow ended pretty quickly, with the Okapi who really weren't bothered at all. Ew. But as the last patches of snow defrosts and melts to unravel our zoo, I realized how absolutely ugly our park is right now. So I think it's time for a zoo makeover. It's about time we use our hard-earned money for some decoration, and I wanted to theme it just like the challenge, with a lot of squares. I began dazzling the front of some of our enclosures with some screens and plant life, followed with the first mascot for the middle plaza that is a square head deer. Stay with me now, trust me. The entrance I thought could use some love also, especially by a stinky toilet that I expressed in the form of stubby red hands and a giant, even more menacing red monster made out of, you guessed it, squares. Gosh, the kids are not coming back, are they? Anyways, I didn't stop putting flying squares for one to give a sci-fi feel, more plants everywhere, and even smaller animal statues with square heads. Just like the staff section that I gave this pixely explosion from the wall look. Yes, to the square ancestors we must respect. Inside, a bunch of trees and greenery will give our staff a little boost in efficiency, as you can see here. But that's not important, I want more squares. And new shopping centers will also keep that aesthetic. And now look at our beautiful plaza. But seeing all this square perfection, I'm left with one question in mind. How in the heavens will I fit so many more animals in this even tinier corners left of our square now? But first, I have the littlest space in the middle here, and I'm gonna make something great out of it. The bridge. I'm going to make this a walkway for our guests to reach the back of the zoo. That is going to of course involve an animal. Later, we have about 4 more fascinating animals in strangely themed sections that, trust me, you'll question me for. But for now, I placed a giant walkthrough exhibit right in the middle, with our next animals already in. The butterflies, the European peacock, and the monarch to be specific. Exhibit animals that I want to present beautifully by turning the walls into glass to get the greenhouse vibe to it. Inside, I use some rocks to create not so straight lines to add depth and cover the ugly gray floor with good old brown mulch, even adding layers of them to add some fluctuations. I didn't go overkill with the plants, adding friendlier bushes that have more rounded leaves and little baby flowers that crowds them around. The next part is going to take this exhibit's beauty to a next level. But oh, let's not forget to celebrate Mr. Baby Okapi here, born all excited and as bizarre as his mama and papa. It's like breeding a unicorn, not like the armadillo grown-up babies I have to keep selling. Anyways, wisteria plants is the cheat code, flaunting a stunning display of lilac and pink hanging flowers that I spent no time just plastering all over the walls and exhibit, up to the top and outside too, to look like this flower paradise, adding a little extra spice of long potted plants with bulbous flower bushes. Then this pretty bridge to the next part of the zoo is done. But whatever could be in the other side of this beauty, it's surely gotta be such a marvelous attraction. It's the Dusty Corner, a forgotten section of the zoo where weird, dusty, and musty creatures come to die. Wait, no, that's too dramatic. I'm going to make some cool habitats here. The theme is animals that literally look like dust and or weird looking enough to be boxed away to this corner. But first, we gotta plan accordingly with paths forming a little hub, and because I want it to feel like an actual dirty, dusty hole, down a little slump on the ground. That meets a nice glass barrier and secret staff door at the back, which will be our main habitat for this section. Oh yeah, this small area is going to fit 3 whole animals, and 2 of which will be in this cube brick exhibit that will hold some weirdos you'll see soon. Right now, some outside glass and some roofing to this little musty corner will finalize this stinky dark corner. Now the hardest part is to brainstorm what freaky animals I will put here. But while I do that, I think a big old dust monster mascot would be perfect here. Don't ask me why, I'm obsessed with making these fellas completely out of squares. And now this giant dust caterpillar will present them to the good old dusty corner. Let's set the visuals on the inside first. first, with fences, hints of wood, and of course squares that are scattered and colored like dust. The rest was gruelingly covering everything with a flush of desert rocks at every inch of the terrace. For lighting, I even added these big wooden coal torches that constantly puffs out a plume of smoke, cause I figured it looked like a bunch of dust. This is probably a safety hazard indoors, but who cares? I flipped through the good old Zoopedia for creepy crawlies and found just the perfect two, which I quickly bought plenty of, and placed them into their exhibit homes. Now we have the sacred scarab beetle that is just a cool way to hide their true poop digging nature. Look at him, enjoying his large pile of waste. You disgust me. And of course the giant burrowing cockroach, which is fitting with the dusty corner being a little damp corner of our zoo. But these guys will get an upgrade for their habitat soon too. For now, we'll have to get started with the main habitat here as some curious people are starting to come. So I wanted the cooler habitat. And just as it gets dark, let me introduce you to the dusty corner's main animal, the sand cat. Fluffy, adorable, and literally looks like a ball of dust. I can't think of a better pick. And this habitat is actually going to be one of my favorites later on. And this soon-to-be kitten paradise starts with some dirt balconies to place an elevated house that I tried with a few options. Then using these rock structures that I actually took from Caesar Crate's workshop that honestly is very beautifully made. Across the whole entire wall, making sure that each empty gap is filled, and rubble on the base of it to make it look more natural. That's the background. And now the middle ground, I manually placed desert rock slabs to add a sloping rocky texture here. And over every other surface and wall I can find with its own blend of sandy stones. On a whim, I also made out this arched desert structure thingy all weathered down and covered with tangled lilia to give our sand kitties their king of the desert moment when they go on top of it, you know? Then the fun part was the enrichment, giving them a concoction of giant timber and different logs and branches for them to climb and play around, but also reach every part of the habitat. A little wooden structure in the middle, and basically endless corners to explore for our extremely tiny dust babies. I started planting with nice greener desert plants that complements the more arid tones of the habitat, following a blush of tiny grass and bushes that grows out of the rubble. This helps achieve this look of a desert patch that has a bit of life to it. You guys would probably also notice how dark this dusty corner is, so I added spotlights near the far edge of the viewing points, giving an amazing spotlight for this now open sand kitten playground. Well, the sand cats are pretty shy inside their burrow right now, so let's look back at our zoo for a bit. Everyone had been begging to make my zoo tickets more expensive, so fine if you insist. And our butterfly garden had been so absolutely loved by the kids and the guests going inside it, and perfect for the butterflies, that they've been reproducing up to the hundreds. I'll take that as a compliment, but y'all are going to have to be sold to the highest bidder. I'm sorry, it has to be done. On a more positive note, our leopards are cozying in their habitat super well as I upgrade their food and check on the basic standards of our zoo. And of course, a million more new baby armadillos running around. You've been having fun in that little hole of yours, I see. Sorry about your children. I couldn't say the same for the less problematic baby tortoises on the other hand. What you up to, little guy? Oh, you want some water? There you go, buddy. Yes, it's all yours. Our Okapi is an all grown-up teenager now, probably at the age when he starts hating on his mom. This habitat is still by far the favorite amongst the guests, and with a few researches, our little poop insects get some love too. With new big branches, they still like poop. And of course, the sand cats are getting a lot of attention too, looking like we got ourselves a pair of dust babies too. But with the new part of the zoo opening, we'll have to set up some drink and food shops too, making a little hub for our guests to relax, but most importantly, attract people to see our next and last most ambitious habitat. I remembered when the snowstorm hit our zoo, and I didn't think about how scared and freezing my animals were. No, I thought about how good my zoo looks all covered in snow. So introducing the cold shoulder. Get it? Because it's going to be a cold habitat and it's in the corner of our zoo. Anyways, the first draft of my plans on how the habitat and water body should work turned out to be quite poopy and bad. So I scratched that and put a little path down into the water viewing point just from the hub instead. With the glass barriers and clear visuals of the murky ice underwaters, I used the aquatic rocks I colored slate gray because they have a sleeker texture to them, keeping this up using different shapes and sizes and directions of rocks and even rubble and pebbles, letting the wind of the rock gods to guide my hand, and before I know it, I have this icy rock kingdom, and the middle can be used as sort of a large shelter for them. But then that's when it hit me. This is probably the last animal habitat I can fit in my square, and there is no way I'm ending it with nothing less of an amazing attraction. You'll see what I have planned soon. I started pouring some snow, but that white is too blinding, so instead use kinder snow rocks and smoosh them into our structures all across and each corner of the habitat, where the overlapping gives this effect of snow patches building up after a snowstorm, putting a little wooden jetty too, zoo. Why not? Alongside the very much needed coolers that will officially put this ice cold home down to its freezing temperatures. Now manually dusting a bit of snow ourselves too, until it's time to finally see our animals tippy-tapping into the habitat. The king penguin. What's a more fitting last animal than the king of the penguins? I don't actually know if that's true. Remember, after this we'll still need to see for sure if fitting all these habitats into our tiny square will actually work and sustain itself. So I think this habitat still has a lot missing to it. And after opening the habitat to the public with screens and dono bins, I don't know what possessed me to create a giant snowman in the backdrop with a top hat to get some brownie points from the guests. I added a spotlight to highlight our big snow buddy, and voila! The penguin habitat is finally opened. And no one is as happy as our swimming ice birdies. Get a room, you guys, come on. Speaking of, our penguins have not produced a baby yet. On top of that, we're at the final period, a phase where we figure out if this tiny square now filled with a zoo will actually work out over time. I checked in our armadillos who had basically lived happily with flawless welfare the whole time, and our leopard who's old and finally reaching the end of his life. Okay, there he goes. Gone so fast, my goodness. We'll get more leopards to fill this habitat. But with time, honestly our guest ratings just keep increasing and everyone stayed pretty happy. We've made amazingly beautiful habitats that I personally am very proud of. Well, at the very least also for our swarm of growing tortoise babies and thriving okapi family. And over at the dusty corner where a pair of our baby sand kitties are out and exploring their sandy playground and having a blast. And the babies just keep coming. Each corner and inch of this tiny square is used to its best potential and concluded with a brown furry baby penguin born into this world. Look at his flappers. You go, buddy. So if you ever ask yourself if you can build a zoo into one tiny square, the answer is yes. I'm gonna go play Polybuzz AI. Thank you so much for watching.
Ting 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 ring.